Hello class. In the last video we talked about adjusting line weights and if you need to colors and other things for the CAD work that you brought in. You have full control there, so hopefully you're a good start. Again, you can always update anything you want, but I have the way I want to here. I'm going to lock that layer, and I still say while the plans and elevations are reading, they could still read a lot better. And one of the simple things you can do in Illustrator is to really add poches and hatches essentially to make things read well. So that's what this video is going to be about. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come down below the CAD layer and make a new layer. I'm going to call that, I'm going to call it wall, actually I'm going to call it building poche. This is, we're going to do two poches, I think here. I'm going to start with building poche and do the simplest thing here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my fill to white and my stroke to nothing. Actually, I'll set to nothing, so slash. Now the reason why I'm setting it to white, because I have white lines with a dark background. If you have different colors, if you have black lines, you might set it to like a light gray or a black even, because we can use transparency to lighten it as we will do here. And or you might not even choose to do this step at all. If your plans are like reading really well as is, you might not choose to add the building poche at all. But stick around because the wall poche is probably still pretty needed. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trace out my elevations and my floor plans. Um, Pretty simple. I'm using the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in and I'm just clicking around and following it. Again, when you use the pen tool at first, it's going to be a little awkward because the fill's going to jitter around. But as you get closer and closer to actually finish the trace, it will look correct. You just have to trust yourself with this. So we're going to come up and come around, and it'll just take a few minutes here to go. I'm going to Ooh, this is going to be a good lesson. I'm realizing we're going to have to do a cool little thing to cut that hole out. Well, I'll show how to do that. There's different ways of solving that problem, but we'll come here and do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video. You don't need to see me trace out the floor plans. It's the same as the elevation. I'll simplify the video and come back. All right, so I post-shade the whole building as is. Obviously, we can't see anything. If you haven't guessed it, what we're going to do is we're just going to select all that post-shade you just made, and we're going to add some transparency to it. And I'm going to only, in this case, I think I only need a little bit of transparency. It looks like around 20 might be good. You can play it back and forth and see how it looks, how you like it. And you can already see, though, when I do that, I can really start to read these buildings quite cleanly now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer because I think it looks good. And I'm going to add a wall poche. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it wall poche. And essentially, we're going to do the same thing down here in the floor plans because we really want to make the wall stand out as read strongly. And I'm just going to add another white trace around all my walls. Adjust the transparency as needed. I might not need any transparency at all. We'll see how it goes. Then the walls will really stand out as a nice poche, and I should get a good reading. Now, there's multiple ways of tracing out the walls. The simplest thing to do, though it will take some time, is again to use the pen tool and just trace around the objects just like this. Of course, if you get into a case where when you click, you can't see your next bunch of clicks because I have to go back this way because I don't want to poche over the windows. Just temporarily, you can do this right here. Hit the donut, or not the donut, hit the slash, and you don't see the fill anymore. And you can come around and really, you can do this in pieces. But if you're good, you can see I actually can get all of this wall and all down the wall, around the door here, all in this one go. And even though we don't see anything because I'm not filling it, I am making the shape. So just give it a second. You'll see how I'll get the white fill back. Click around to the start, and then I can just hit this button to go back to the color, and you can see now I've got the poche filled in there. So I ultimately have to go around and do all these things for squares and rectangles. I could simply use the rectangle tool and fill them in quite quickly. And it's going to take a few minutes, yes, but again, as I always say, good drawings do take time. Just because we're doing in the computer doesn't mean things are going to be instantaneous. If you think you're looking for something to be instantaneous, it's probably not going to be as high a quality as you can get it. So, of course, there's also no reason to watch me poche all my walls. So what I'll do is, like before, I'll just stop the video and come back once I'm done pocheing. You go ahead and poche all your walls on your end. We'll finish up this video with a few more tips when we get back. All right, so I finished poching all the walls, and in this case, the chimney and things. And you can go ahead and make some decisions again. I think I might just, for the fun of it, add some slight transparency to mine. So I'm going to select it all, go to my transparency, and I don't know how low. I might just test. A lot of it is just going back and forth and testing. Even that low still makes the wall stand out pretty decently, but I think I might just up it a little bit. I'll try 50%. Anyway, give it a go and see what you like for yours. Different colors and all these things really do make a difference. One thing yeah, so one thing I should say is I have a few mistakes in the poching that I did both for the building and walls. And so if you have mistakes along the way, I'm going to review how to fix those now. You can go back and fix them or change them as needed. One is we can see for my building poche, this is not actually building, this should be hollow. So I'll show you how to do that. I have a mistake in some of the wall poches down in here and here. One has to do with extra transparency, one has to do with hitting the wrong spot. I know we're so far zoomed out we can't see it, but I'm going to go over those. So I'm going to do this one first. If we come down here in my wall poche, we see that right here is a little bit brighter. And the reason for that is I messed up. I traced out this wall, but didn't realize that it sort of connects into this wall. And then I traced out this wall, and there's an overlap. And since there's transparencies on it, the overlap becomes darker. And so we can fix that just by simply merging this into one form. And so the way we're going to do that is go to Window and go to the Pathfinder and select the two forms that you need to combine into one, and then unify them with this button right there. And again, if that, I only have that in one case in mind, but if you have that in multiple spots, do it once, go on to the next spot, do it again, and so on. And then you can see the transparency is nice and cleaner there. It's a cool little tool there. And then down in here, I sort of messed up my click. You can see some of these, if I see the purple line, you can see sometimes you don't have to be perfectly centered or anything. As long as it's within the line stroke, that's fine. But this point should be way over here, and I have this empty space. So to do that, you're just going to go to your white arrow. You're going to click on the point that needs to be moved, and you're going to move it over. And I didn't make this mistake, but let's say that you completely missed it. Give me a second. I'm going to show you the inverse of this. You can actually add and remove points. Let's say you did that somewhere and you were like, oh no, I don't even have a point to move. All you need to do is click and hold over the pen tool, go to the plus sign, and you can click on the line. It's going to add a point. Then jump to your white arrow. Click on it. Once I click and let go, I find it selects it easier, and then click again and hold and move it into place. And there you go. So you can edit your fills as needed. Pretty simple. That's the great thing about Illustrator. And the last correction I want to make is I want to remove part of a fill that's internal, right? It's almost like creating a hole, okay? And there's multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to have to go to the correct layer, so I don't have it on wall poche, but I have that on building poche in this case. Although sometimes you have walls that might need a hole like this. I'm going to go and add the shape what I want the hole to be. And it can be drawn in any color. It can be the white like I'm working on. It can be, whatever the case might be. It can be completely no fill stroke like this, as long as I got the line shape traced out. So I'm going to trace out the line like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both the shape I just drew as well as the shape I want the hole in it. And I'm going to right click and say, make compound path, and we can see it's cut the hole in it. You can also use Pathfinder tools as well to do the same thing, but that's sort of the quick way of doing it. And so you can go ahead and edit those poches, and again, really make your plan stand out as much as possible. With that, we sort of adjusted the CAD work, and we've added poches to really make it look nice. Do what you think is best for your drawing. Again, everyone's can look different. And we'll come back in the next video and talk about how to sort of unify our drawing a little bit more together with the perspective and the background and the CAD work we have set up.